Iowa Hawkeyes looking to build off a tremendous performance on the defensive side of things against the South Dakota State Jackrabbits, paired with really solid special teams. They try to light a fire under that offense that needs help. Can they do it? We'll talk about Iowa State, the Cyhawk series, in just a moment. But first, a reminder to please hit that like button. Does help us every time you're here watching a video and you're enjoying the content, just the back and forth. We, of course, do call-in shows, and we have the Iowa post-game show with Coach John Patterson after every Iowa football game. We're trying to bring you great content. Please help us out by hitting that like button. If you haven't subscribed, turn notifications on, hit that little bell. That helps as well. Also, to support the show, you can check out our sponsors. First of all, authentic Hawkeye artwork from Under the Kitchen. Randy Engel, the artist at Under the Kitchen, doing great work. He was at Fry Fest, had a stand there, but you can check out his stuff all year round. Visit Under the Kitchen on Facebook. Also, Ascent Nutrition. And how about this stuff? Their Ascent Coffee. It's mold and mycotoxin free. It will make you feel alert and ready to take on your day, and you will not be weighing yourselves down with pesticides, molds, mycotoxins that your name brand coffees typically are treated with. None of that stuff. Go ascentnutrition.com. Use the code Hawkeyes for 15% off your purchase. All right, Iowa State Saturday. We've been waiting for this game for a while, and as you know, it's always a much hyped game, although the hype around Iowa fans this year is a little bit down, and I think you could say the same thing about Iowa State. I think there's multiple reasons for that. I think Iowa State fans headed into this year kind of accepting the fact that this was probably not the year they'd get off the schneid. We spoke with Levi Stevenson, a member of the Iowa State SB Nation site. Well, I believe it's called Wide Right and Natty Light. We talked with him over at the Iowa, at the Voice of College Football channel on Tuesday, and he basically said as much. You know, this is not a team that Iowa State fans expected to be able to go into Kinnick and win against an Iowa defense that brings back almost everybody. You do lose a few in the secondary, as we know, Jack Kerner and Dane Belton, and of course they lost Zach Van Valkenburg and Matt Hankins. But this is a really revamped Cyclone offense. You've got a new quarterback within Hunter Deckers who set the world on fire at the high school level here in the state of Iowa. He's a lefty. He's got a really nice, smooth stroke. You look at Jyrell Brock, who will be trying to fill the shoes that Breece Hall left behind, who is now a New York Jet. There's some different pieces in this offense. The good news for the Cyclones, they have Xavier Hutchinson back. They took care of business last week against Southeast Missouri State, and I didn't get to watch this whole game, and I really don't have a whole lot of interest in going back and watching it from start to finish. But I can tell you this. I thought Hunter Deckers looked good, threw for just short of 300 passing yards on the day, did have 4 touchdowns through the air. Honestly, Iowa State's defense, I think, a little bit underwhelming. You may say, well, Corey, they held them to 10 points. This is not a good FCS program in Southeast Missouri State. And yes, they held them to 10 points. Now, some of these may have been in mop-up duty at the end of the game, but Southeast Missouri State still totaled 320 yards on the day. And, that's only 140 less than what Iowa State had for the day. And you look at the score, it certainly would not reflect that. But the fact of the matter is, Southeast Missouri State was able to throw the football semi-effectively against the Cyclones. DeLauren, the Southeast Missouri State quarterback, threw for 222 yards. He is a mobile guy. He ran for 74 yards as well. Iowa, of course, unless they throw in Alex Padilla or Joey Labus, you're not going to get rushing. That's not going to be an issue. Iowa State's not going to have to worry about containing Spencer Petras out of the backfield. And that's just another example of how opposing defenses look to take advantage of Iowa's shortcomings on offense. Iowa will get back Gavin Williams. It sounds like he'll be back at running back for this game. They will still be down Keegan Johnson, Nico Reganey. Brian Ferentz alluded to the fact that Jacob Bostic may be ready to go on Saturday. Brody Brecht looks like he's healthy. How many snaps can he actually log? It sounds like conditioning might be somewhat of an issue still for Brody, but they've just got the 2 wide receivers who are on scholarship right now that are healthy, Brody Brecht and Arlen Bruce, who played great last week, even though the Iowa offense was about as bad as you can imagine. And so who steps up? Where do the points come from for the Hawkeyes? Certainly having Gavin Williams back helps you. You hope that offensive line makes a big jump because they weren't great week 1. I expect Logan Jones to settle down a bit. You saw a couple high snaps in the game against SDSU. You would think that he can correct that from one week to the next. And you really hope. I'm no offensive line expert, had conversations with Don Patterson. He never coached the offensive line in his day either, but he understands the position. Certainly, you'd hope that some of the issues that we saw crop up on tape against South Dakota State week 1 are not strength and conditioning issues, because those aren't going to be fixed during the season. I think some of those technique problems certainly can be. Iowa's going to have to generate points on defense. Not saying you have to turn it into a bunch of pick sixes or, a bunch of safeties. Iowa, of course, had 2 against South Dakota State, but you do have to put the offense in extremely favorable positions. You could argue that Torrey Taylor is just as big of a part of that as the defense is. And those 2 units right now, special teams and defense, they are putting this offense in a position to succeed. You hope that Alec Wick and Jack Johnson are developing more chemistry with Spencer Petras. You can say what you want about the offensive line. I am a firm believer that it starts at quarterback. And I know some people don't agree with that they say, well, it starts at the offensive line. I understand you can overcome poor quarterback play with good offensive line play to an extent, but you can overcome subpar offensive line play with a quarterback who knows how to get the ball out of the pocket quickly, who can escape the pocket, which, of course, we're not going to get with Spencer Petras. We understand that. But Spencer's got to learn to be able to make those throws when pressure's in his face. He had a lot of very makeable throws on Saturday that he just missed, and that's part of the game, but you cannot afford to miss it against a much better defense. Will McDonald, star defensive end for the Cyclones. This guy is an NFL defensive end in a college uniform. I mentioned on the other side of the ball, Xavier Hutchinson. He's going to provide a challenge to Iowa's cornerbacks. There are some matchups that I think are intriguing. And I'm intrigued to see, will Mason Richman match up against Will McDonald the majority of this game? If he does, he's going to have to play the game of his life, because Will McDonald is one of the best defensive ends that Mason Richman has faced, with the exception maybe being Aiden Hutchinson last year. I do think that the biggest matchup to watch on the field, I'll say the same thing I said last week against South Dakota State. It's Iowa's corners, Iowa's defensive backs against the Iowa State wide receiving core. Look, Iowa State's fast. They're athletic. They know how to get the ball down the field. Deckers has a big arm, maybe a bigger arm than Brock Purdy, his predecessor. And so, last week, I didn't think the Jackrabbits really tested Iowa effectively. They had a deep ball to one of the Yankee brothers early in that game where Kayvon Merriweather got beat, and it was an overthrown pass. Had that connected, it would have been a touchdown. South Dakota State may have won that game. So I'm a little bit surprised John Stiegelmeier and that Jackrabbit offense didn't attack Iowa vertically more often. And I think that's where Iowa State wins this ball game if they do win. They're going to have to find a way to push the ball downfield and test Riley Moss and his discipline. Iowa also looks to be without Jamari Harris, who's out, or at least doubtful with an injury. We know he missed game 1 because of an OWI suspension. It sounds like he's dinged up right now. So Iowa down to its top 2, Terry Roberts and Riley Moss. Will Cooper DeJean factor in at corner? Also, that's a factor. We saw him week 1 against the Jackrabbits at corner. Lots of storylines here, folks, but can Iowa get a pass rush on Hunter Deckers? I expect them to do that. That might be how Iowa counteracts the speed and athleticism that Iowa State has on the outside. It's getting to the quarterback and forcing Hunter Deckers into difficult situations. And, folks, Hunter Deckers has never played a game like this in his life. You get him down that north end zone, and he did throw a pick last week against Southeast Missouri State. Iowa can get him into some problems, but you're going to have to get pressure on him because he's got a great arm and great receivers when he has time. I think that's where Iowa State can score against this Iowa defense. So the defensive line getting pressure on Deckers. Y.A. Black, I didn't mention him earlier in the week talking about injuries. He's out for this game. So now Aaron Graves and Louis Steck will step into that role, that backup role at one of the 2 defensive tackle positions. And we'll try to get a pass rush on a guy who really talented arm. And he's a lefty, so it changes things just a bit. Stay tuned, because later this evening I'll be releasing my week 2 picks, which will include my prediction for Iowa and Iowa State, the Cyhawk series this coming Saturday. That will be released later today right here from the Hawkeye of the Storm.